With Republicans taking control of the House and a static economy crippling the nation, how will the president's agenda help the black community? Joining me to discuss this are Reverend Al Sharpton, founder of the National Action Network and former presidential candidate, Angela McGlowan, Fox News political analyst, and Jeff Johnson, MSNBC political commentator. We are 2 years into the Obama presidency. Some people are saying he's doing a great job. Other people are saying we are worse than we've ever been. Angela, what do you say?
I think he's doing a great job now because he's compromising with the Republicans, and that's what it's going to take to help create a better black America. For our democracy to truly work, you have to compromise and work together. And under Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid, we did not see that.
Well, but there's a misnomer to that, right? Because while there was not the kind of communication and interaction that could have gotten some things done, they got some pretty substantial legislation passed.
Their legislation passed.
But we're talking about what did Obama do for people of color. And at the end of the day, there was legislation passed that ultimately benefited people of color without the support of the Republicans.
That's what his question is.
There's no
Are we better off today?
that we're better off today than we was under Bush. I mean, let's look at the fact that in the first 2 years we got health care. We were able to bring the economy back from the brink. Let's remember now, when George Bush left, we didn't know if the country was going to economically rebound. Let's know black America. And black colleges, there's a lot of things that has happened. Now, would we like to see more? Absolutely. But to compare Bush to Obama in terms of blacks is, to me, a non-starter.
Bush put forth an effort to put more money into small businesses. Okay, let me put it this way. He put more money into small businesses. Well, then give me back, sir.
How can
Bush
you
was
say,
not better for small
how
businesses
can you
than
say
Obama?
the man that caused the crashing of banks and insurance companies brought in more businesses? Are you kidding? The whole country almost went out of business.
Okay, hold on one second. 2006, Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid took over the House and the Senate.
Right.
So some of the policies that went through that you're talking about, the crash of the banks and the crash of the economy, went through
Bush
a Democrat
tax cuts for the wealthy.
Oh, well, then
we
why
just
Obama,
had a report that came out from a federal commission.
Just extend the Bush tax cuts,
because of the compromise that you talked about.
So let's talk about that compromise for a minute.
Yeah.
Is President Obama compromising because he's now had a change of heart and realizes that he needs to invest differently, that he needs private business, or is this a political move that he has to do to sustain his presidency?
May I please say this? It's a political move to sustain his presidency. But let's get back to the Bush tax cuts and why he did it. When you have Congressman Nadler, who's a Democrat, Congressman Israel, when you have certain Democrats calling for the extension of the Bush tax cuts to help the economy, then that is true compromise as well. So it just wasn't Obama succumbing to extend the Bush tax cuts, which in his campaign promise when he was running for office, he said he would not. And you even had progressives that went against him for extending them. But you had Democrats,
I think the reality is,
Democrats calling for
Yeah, but I think the
Obama
problem is that the Democrats who could have had the vote on a lot of these policies in mid-summer of 10 didn't want to vote because they wanted to wait till after the midterm elections.
Right.
We got past the midterm elections in November. 2 million people were about to lose their insurance in terms of their unemployment benefits and their Social Security. And they had the president, Obama, between a rock and a hard place. He either compromised the Republicans to save those 2 million people with Social Security and unemployment, or he's blamed for putting 2 million people out in the name of, I'm going to hold on to the commitment I made on the back Bush tax cut.
Who's the they that have put Obama between a rock and a hard place?
Some of the Democrats. I started by saying that some of the Democrats did that, which is why some of the Democrats had to stand up and take the weight for what they did.
Now,
they put him in that position.
Now, Jeff, part of what this speaks to is the difference between running for president and actually being president. Every president experiences. There's a gap between governing and running. Right now, the president, after 2 years in, has kind of changed gears a bit.
Sustaining the American dream has never been about standing pat. It has required each generation to sacrifice and struggle and meet the demands of a new age. And now it's our turn. We know what it takes to compete for the jobs and industries of our time. We need to out-innovate, out-educate, and out-build the rest of the world.
He launched a new platform where he's saying, these are the things that I'm going to do for the remainder of my period. Is it a positive step forward what he articulated the other day?
Well, I think so. I mean, I think anytime you're talking about winning the future, that's a good thing. The question is, how do we win the future? And so I think the president laid out a number of areas that he wants it to happen. The devil is always in the details.
Right.
And so the question is going to be, one, what does the budget look like? Because the budget is going to determine, are we going to be successful or not? There's no navigating around that. And that's going to be where the real fight is and where the rubber meets the road.
I want y'all to hold your thoughts because we're going to come back. We're going to talk about more of the State of the Union, and we're going to talk about what's going to happen in 2 more years. Stay right there. We'll be back with more in a bit.
And what real innovation is getting out of the way where we think we're waiting on Superman for one person with the golden answer to come and fix every situation. It does not work.
When a child walks into a classroom, it should be a place of high expectations and high performance. But too many schools don't meet this test. That's why instead of just pouring money into a system that's not working, we launched a competition called Race to the Top. To all 50 states, we said, if you show us the most innovative plans to improve teacher quality and student achievement, we'll show you the money.
Welcome back. I'm here with Reverend Al Sharpton, Angela McGlowan, and Jeff Johnson. The president has said that we're going to outperform the entire world, and part of how we're going to do that is to invest in education. Angela, what do you say?
During the Bush administration, you had Rod Page that created No Child Left Behind.
Right.
Unfortunately, children have been left behind.
And the budget was left behind.
And in the 2nd District of Mississippi, you have kids in the 9th grade that read on the 3rd grade level. In Tennessee, you have certain schools that have girls, all of them are pregnant. So our system is failing us. There's a problem there. Now, Race to the Top, as the Reverend said during the break, has only been out there for 2 years, and it seems to be working. But we need to cut the fat.
No, but I think, see, one of the things, and as all of you know, I've worked with President Obama and even went on tour with Newt Gingrich on this. One of the things that Race to the Top does is at least make the objective seeing if the kids are being improved. Now, we can perfect it more, but we've got to get past all the special interests to where the kids.
Right.
When you look at the fact that nationwide, black kids are 4 grades behind in reading and math, you look at a city like Detroit, half of the black men are dropping out of school. It's not working yet. We really need an investment there, and we need to change the culture inside our own community. And I absolutely agree with President Obama.
But there's also got to be, and I think to Angela's point, it can't just be the government. And so there's got to be public-private sector partnerships. I mean, I think what Bill Gates is doing as it relates to innovation and funding innovation is a push in the right direction. So if local communities and states get to the point where they understand that innovation is about multi-level partnerships, then you take some of the pressure off of a Department of Education. You put us in positions where certain things that have been funded traditionally can be cut. But at the end of the day, somebody's still got to pay the money. Somebody's still got to make sure there's accountability. And what real innovation is getting out of the way where we think we're waiting on Superman for one person with the golden answer to come and fix every situation. It does not work. And
Clark Kent doesn't even show up in our community.
You said forget Superman, you only get Clark.
I'm not even waiting on Superman. I'd be happy if Lois Lane and Clark Kent showed up.
I want to change gears a bit very quickly. One of the things that people talk about with President Obama's administration is that they haven't been willing to name black folk, even when some of the policies have affected black folk, you know, health care, housing and so forth. He hasn't had an explicitly race-targeted agenda.
And who was the last president that did that?
Who was the first one?
That's a fair question, right?
Who's the first one? I mean, again, I think that we cannot ghettoize President Obama. We never have put that on any president, including William Jefferson Clinton, who some blacks call the first black president.
I don't know why.
He never, ever had a black agenda. It has always been blacks, Latinos, Jewish women that brought their agenda to the president. Why would this president be any different? President Obama met with the head of the Urban League, head of NAACP, and me on black unemployment. And other blacks said, well, why did he come outside and address the black agenda? The meeting was on black unemployment.
He also
so
met
I think
with,
it is below
county officials,
the dignity of our community to act like he should be any different than any other president. He should address the issues.
Sweeping legislative changes that the African-American community has seen was when local activists met with national leadership that brought a plan into Johnson's office.
That's correct.
That ultimately came the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act. That's a model. And while there are nuances that have shifted, it's not going to be the president in red, black, and green walking through communities saying milk and honey is going to flow because I showed up.
And
That's
Johnson,
black
who
leadership's
was a
job.
racist, had to do it. He had to do it. It was his time, and he had to go to Republicans to help him. So at the end of the day, I agree with
You're
both of them.
always Republican.
Well, look, Johnson was racist. Let's just put it out there. I talk about it in my book, Bamboozle. In any event, I agree with both of these guys that Obama has to remain mainstream. It can't be what's good for Black America, Latino America. It's what's good for America.
But I think the other piece, and we can't overlook this, is the fact that much of the legislation that he's put forward, he hasn't had to put a black label on.
Right.
It's affected poor people, black people, middle-class people.
No question.
Right.
So we can't skip over
But
that.
the other thing I think
I have to hold that thought real quick because I got to take a break. When we come back, we'll wrap up. Stay right there. We'll be back with more Our World with Black Enterprise.
I think the Republicans clearly cannot count on the American people to have amnesia on where they brought this country.
Welcome back. I have a very little amount of time left, but I do want to ask if there's one thing the president should work on in the next 2 years, what should it be?
He's starting with jobs in the economy. There's no option. That is what his presidency is going to live or die on.
Jobs. Makes sense to
The
me.
economy and jobs.
Jobs, 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 education.
That's what I'm talking about. Bipartisan agreement. And if that happens, does the president get reelected in 2 years?
I think the president gets reelected. I think he gets reelected because I think he has been able to turn the corner in terms of where this country was headed. And I think the Republicans clearly cannot count on the American people to have amnesia on where they brought this country.
Angela, does he get reelected?
If the economy's better, and if there are more jobs created and less foreclosures, he has a great chance.
And he has your vote.
If the trajectory continues where it is right now, I believe he'll be reelected.
Sounds good to me. Well, thank you all for a spirited panel. Reverend Al Sharpton, Angela McGlowan, and Jeff Johnson. I hope to have you all back again soon.
Thank you.
That wraps it up here for us at Our World of Black Enterprise. Don't forget to visit us online at blackenterprise.com. I'm Marc Lamont Hill. Check me out on Facebook or follow me on Twitter. Thank you for watching Our World of Black Enterprise. See you next week.